if you kept everything else constant, your nutrition, your sleep, everything else you're doing, I think you'd only lose about 5 pounds.
Really? Should I try it? Coach Greg, and I'm here with Eric Janicki, and we're going over your favorite influencers, deciding are they natty or are they not? Jesse James West.
Jesse James West. He's a friend of mine. I'm going to say natural because I think I'm always looking at trends. And also my big thing with Jesse is Jesse doesn't predicate his growth on social media on his physique. He has built his whole brand on his being fun and doing challenges. So if he were to be out of shape and still keep doing these challenges, like he would still grow on YouTube. Like if he like just kind of got fat and just was hosting and like running around, and like I get it, it really helps him to have a nice physique, shirt off, good looking guy. But I don't think there's so much pressure for him to be like the 1% of the 1% physiques. I think he's got a great natural physique, but I don't think it would do anything for him to maybe put on another 10 pounds of muscle. He's still going to grow on YouTube. And that's why for me personally, I don't think the pressure is there for him. I think he has joked about it, but he also has a very lighthearted like way of talking about it himself, his physique. I don't think he has body dysmorphia. I think he's just like, yeah, I got a natural physique. I get it. I have a pretty good natural physique. I have things I don't like about my physique, but it's not going to like be the make or break for me. I think he's a very human oriented person. I think he's a very experiential oriented person. And I think that's more important to him than maybe like an extra little bit of muscle.
I think if he went on gear and got jacked, I think it would hurt his channel. I think
right.
People are more relatable. Like this guy, if I work hard and I have great genetics, I could maybe look like this Jesse guy, but if he took steroids and got more enhanced, it makes him more like the different. Like he has 3 million plus followers. I mean, getting more enhanced would hurt him. So why would he bother and take it? Plus, he stated he's natural. If he wasn't and he had the blood work stated, as I've said, you can show your blood work, and he shows his blood work. Why would he lie? It doesn't help him. Like he's almost like he enters a bodybuilding show, natural, and if he doesn't win, it's almost better. He say like, look, I did the best I could. I'm natural. I didn't win, but it's okay. I had fun.
Yeah.
I think so. For me, Jesse James is natural. A lot of people don't believe it. I mean, a physique is better than 99% of the people.
I think that's always the thing, though. It's like everybody that looks better than them online is not natural because like they can't believe deep down, like how could somebody possibly look better than me or than somebody else, like if they're not taking something. I think that's the biggest thing.
Do you know what? People fail to see how important genetics are. Like if you're smart, how much do you have to study to get a 90 average in math? Versus if you're bad in math, you can study all day long and struggle to pass the course. This is the same with weights. Like if you have great genetics, it's like being a genius. You just show up to the gym and do a few sets and you have a great physique. If you're really struggling, you can work out all you like and not even look below average. You look like crap. You're trying, but it's just not in the cards for you. You can want to be a doctor all you like. You can study 10 hours a day. You can hire a tutor, and you can't pass. You can't become a doctor.
100%. I think that's the key is like you have to understand how much of a role that plays in whether you're going to be successful or something or not, or how hard you have to work to maybe look even half as good as somebody else.
Next up, Will Tennyson. A lot of speculation on Will. He's gotten much improved physique over the years. He claims to be 100% natural. We know he's done a powerlifting competition of which he won. And he's never done a bodybuilding show, but he's never been like the shredded 5%. He's more like, he's usually in that 12% range, a little bit leaner depending on the day.
I think he's a very attainable physique. I think it's the same kind of argument I have with Jesse James. Like I think for example, I would think it would hurt his brand more than help it if he started to look too grainy or not attainable. Like he's like the normal dude who's like, I went out and tried out like the biggest gym in the world. Like it has nothing to do with how much weight he's lifting at that gym. He's exploring it. He's interviewing people. And I think to that point, I don't think there's anything outward like that I would look at his physique and say, ooh, that's like, he's sustained too lean year round, or I just don't see how he could hold that much tissue naturally. So for me, I think he's like an unequivocal natural for me.
I also think he's natural, and I don't want to insult him and say it's obvious that he's natural because, okay, I want to hear this comment. What percentage of people do you think if we took every random guy that's say 16 years old, every single guy, they went to the gym and they trained as hard as Will Tennyson did. They ate like him. They were as smart as him. They knew what they're doing the way he does. What percent would end up at the end out of 100 looking, let's say, as good as Will or even better? Out of 100 people?
7.
So he says, so basically he's a top 7% physique genetic.
I would say.
I think that's fairly. I feel like that's fairly accurate. I would say he's probably even better. I'd say he's in the top 2%. I think that he's got the highest level of genetics. Not like Chris Bumstead genetics. He's probably at the 1 in a million level. But I think it's important to know this because even if you train really hard and smart and you put years of dedication in, as Will did, when you're Will's age doesn't mean you're going to look like him. Like not every guy, he benches like 355 or so. Like I can't even bench 355. Well, I used to, but I can't now. So it's impressive, like what he can do. And he's very physical, like his family is athletic. So I do think he was born with really good genetics and he put in a lot of work and that's the result.
Yeah, I think I would put it, the only reason I put him in like closer to 7 to 10%, I think like a David Laid, even if he is enhanced, is like, that's like a 1%. Like that.
The aesthetics of David Laid and the fact that he was as strong as he did, and I mean, this is not on the list, but we're adding him. Was David Laid natural throughout?
I do not think David Laid is 100% natural. I think he's on the very low dosing side of things, maybe playing around with some SARMs and things like that. I don't think he went full on cycle because there was no point to me that David Laid went from like, oh, he looks kind of mid to like, oh, he looks like David Laid now. Like David Laid could have literally just like played sports and like maybe lifted some weights here and there and had a strength coach, it would have looked crazy already because he's got these like what's one of the smallest weight structures for somebody of that height and just ab genetics. So he probably would have looked amazing regardless. And so that's why I put him closer to that like 2% genetics.
Yeah. I think for David, what was most suspicious was the strength gain when he benched 390-ish or so from in the lower threes very quickly. That's a big gain in strength. Like it's not normal to put on that kind of strength. Well, when you first join the gym, it is. But if you've been training for a few years, you don't go up 50 pounds in your bench in a few months. It just doesn't happen unless something was added at that point.
Yeah, I think strength gains are a little less suspect to me because strength gains can be predicated on a lot of things, right? Like, let's say you start eating a little bit more. Let's say you start sleeping a little better. Strength can go up
training a new lift if you've never benched.
Yeah, of course. Training a new lift. I think that the strength can change a lot more quickly than the musculature. So that's what I look at more. If there's a lot of lean tissue accumulation, that's more like crazy to me. Because like even when I started training football lifts, as my form got better and as I started, like my lifts actually went up very dramatically, very quickly. But obviously I was not on PEDs, but I think it was more about, okay, maybe I was like, eating a little bit more properly. Maybe my structure of my training was better. Maybe he was focusing on his bench for that month of time a lot more than he was. And so his bench had gone way down. So maybe he was just getting back to his peak strength that he already had before.
Muscle memory, if you had an injury or something, that makes sense. I think in his case, it was a slow, steady kind of progress on the bench. Then it was a massive jump and it wasn't after a layoff or anything. And even the height of him and his weight, it's suspicious to be that strong at that weight, 100% natural, and then all of a sudden he's not doing it anymore. It's like, well, why aren't you continuing to do that? I think if you're 100% natural your whole life and you're transparent, you're just going to post everything and you're not going to see huge variations in your strength unless you stop benching for a few months and then take it back up.
Well, David will do this thing where he won't post for like 6 to 7 months at a time, which is also to me.
It's like Jeff Seed, I think.
Yeah,
he does that. He's off for a while and then he's like, I bulked. And it's like, what are you talking about? He only wants to post photos when he's lean. I think it's a little bit of body dysmorphia. I think people have a hard time dealing with that on social media. If you have 1 million followers and people are talking about how good you look, then even if you lose 1% of that, it's like, I don't want to post my photo. It's hard on the head.
Yeah.
I'm about 20 pounds less muscle compared to when I was at my biggest on all the drugs in the world, but I'm on HRT. If I went off HRT, how much do you think I would lose? What is your opinion? I'm 186 or so now. Do you think I'd be 170? 175 maybe?
If you kept everything else constant, your nutrition, your sleep, everything else you're doing, I think you'd only lose about 5 pounds.
Really? Should I try it?
You should.
I think I would lose more than 5 pounds in 3 months.
You think so?
I do. I have gone off HRT for 9 weeks and I lost about 3 pounds I had less strength, less recovery. My testosterone levels were very low. So I had to get back on HRT. It wasn't for me. And I couldn't train as hard. I couldn't sleep as well. I couldn't function as well. And when you stop a cycle, I'm on testenenthate, deletestrol. It takes about 6 weeks to kind of completely trickle out of the system. So like when I went off HRT, the first 4 weeks, I still felt pretty good. But by week 6, I'm like, all right, now I'm struggling and I couldn't do the same workouts. And I feel like if that 9 weeks got stretched out to another like 9 months, it'd really go down.
Yeah. So for example, for myself, I had to get off of everything for a year and a half when my wife and I were trying to get pregnant. So at the beginning, I did the HCG, HMG, clomiphene, and then completely titrated off of everything. While I did not feel good at all, I actually didn't lose quite as much scale weight as I thought I would because I kept everything else consistent. I did the training the same way. I kept eating, I kept tracking my food, focusing on my sleep. And I think that's a big factor is like a lot of guys, when they cycle off, they feel like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym anymore. Like the pump sucks. Like it's like, I'll just wait till my next cycle. Maybe I'll go and try to hit it like 2 to 3 days a week, but they're not doing the same things. They're probably not hitting their meals because the motivation is so much less.
Now, Jay Cutler said on a podcast with Milos, he said that he looked his best when taking HCG. And I'm thinking that probably meant after going off and he was on HCG as part of the PCT and perhaps he was eating a little bit more as opposed to dieting for the show. And he says it looked the best on HCG. And he says, and I'm like, oh, I have to believe him because why would he lie? He says he feels just as good off as on. No test, HRT not. He's like, I feel good. And he wants to, after he was doing a guest posing, he wanted to just say, I'm going to just go off everything, do an experiment. He doesn't think he needs HRT. Do you think he'll be able to pull it off? Because obviously he's not natural. He wants to do no HRT for the rest of his life. He says, I feel pretty good. And Milos was saying, you're not going to be able to do it. But he's like, I can do it. What do you think about that for Jay Cutler?
I think no. And I think that the reason is the duration of use. He started probably using steroids when he was probably 18.
I would say late teen.
Late teen, 17, 18. Mm-hmm. And now you're talking about he's 50. I think he just turned 50, right?
Yeah.
So that's 30 years of androgen use. Inevitably, the more time you take to shut down your natural production, the longer it's going to take to respur it. And the harder it is as you age. So if you've been doing androgynous testosterone usage and obviously a ton of other PEDs, it's going to be so much harder for you at age 50 to respur your natural production. I don't see it. I think he could probably get away with like maybe HCG, clomiphene, that type of thing. And maybe it'll bring his levels back to, let's say, 600-700, but I don't think he'll be able to get off of it. I don't think he'll be able to just like get off of clomiphene HCG and then be like at levels of 800 just naturally. I think that his levels would inevitably drop down to like 300 or 200 after that, and kind of find that homeostasis. And maybe he feels okay at that. I mean, some people do. I just don't see it.
It could be possibly that for that short period of time when he's off of everything, he feels just as good. But it maybe like you said, it's a year and a half later, then you really notice it. So maybe you go off steroids, you feel okay, you get by. But then a couple of years later, they're like, oh, now it sucks.
I mean, here's what Jay's talking about. Okay. So if you guys have ever competed, right, and you've competed enhanced, the post show is like the best you've ever felt because like you're coming off of a time where you're the most depleted and then you add food back in and your training just like goes crazy. You feel like you get these crazy pumps in the gym and it's really not due to the PEDs. It's actually due because a lot of people modulate off after their show. They get off the orals, they get off the kind of more intense stuff, but they feel the best because of food. The food is the most anabolic substance on earth. And you've spoken to this as well, when you were on even when you were on PEDs, your strength was so much lower when you were close to a show.
It's garbage.
Garbage.
You feel like shit too. Like people think that you can just take steroids and you feel amazing. It's like you need food. Food makes you feel better than drugs. It's like you need it for survival.
Yeah.
You don't eat enough. I don't care what you're taking. You're not building muscle.
So I think that's the biggest misconception is like, oh, these guys are taking like probably feel the craziest and best closest to the show. So what he's experiencing is this like kind of post-show phase where he's probably taking HCG, has come off of everything, is in kind of what they call your health phase, which is, I think, a funny term for any bodybuilder. But he's in this kind of health phase where he's rebounding and eating a lot of food. And so, of course, you're going to feel freaking amazing because you're coming off the show, you're eating, your training's crazy, your sex drive comes back. But I don't think that's a sustainable feeling. Like that lasts for maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks. But then the reality sets in that, oh, you come off all this stuff and now you're in this health phase. And I think that, especially if you'd come off everything and then completely gone cold turkey, I don't think he would feel as good.
Now, for me, every single show I've ever done, I went off completely. I never did like an HRT right after, or I never extended the cycle. What are your feelings on that? To me personally, every time the show's done, you go off everything because obviously your body's at its worst point. Your blood work should come back at least somewhat bad if you've been taking everything. And for that period of time, you take nothing and you actually feel like you're growing because you're eating and you feel better. Versus some people say, this is the most anabolic you're going to be because you haven't been eating. Keep taking the injectables. Perhaps don't take the orals. Get your liver back in check and extend it another, say, 8 to 12 weeks. And you're going to put on 20 pounds of muscle right after the show. What are your feelings on that? Like, what would you tell, a high-level bodybuilder such as yourself? What would you do if you were them?
I'm between those two extremes. I don't think that you should literally come off the day after your show. I think what you do is keep in like a testosterone replacement dose, maybe a little higher than that.
HRT levels? Like I'm at 140.
Maybe like closer to like 250.
Okay, so moderately high.
And then
for an HRT.
Cut all orals, like you said. All orals are out. Because I know some guys will like keep shit like that because they get so addicted to that feeling of like halotestin and those type of things.
The good old days.
Yeah, right. But yeah, keep your... maybe injectables in, maybe like let's say you were running a small dose, let's say Primobolan, things that are very lowly body toxic, really utilize that post-show rebound for let's say 4 to 5 weeks and then run your blood work, see where you're at. Then I'd say that's when you kind of clear out and then maybe come down to your HRT dose. Or if you're going to do a PCT or clomiphene, HMG, HCG, that's when you'd do that for, let's say, 4 to 8 weeks. But I think you extend that anabolic window, so to speak, for 4 to 6 weeks post-show.
Last and probably least, at least the least most muscular, we're going to see, is this guy natural? And it's Brian Johnson, but not the Liver King Brian Johnson, the vampire Brian Johnson, the guy that wants to live forever, the multimillionaire guy. Is he natural? And you're seeing his physique and saying, what do you mean is he natural? Of course he is. But remember, this guy is I think he was tested at 4-point-something% body fat. He's eating like 500 calories below what he should be because the less you weigh, the longer you can live. And so I don't know if I want to spoil this or not, but I want to see what you say first and I'll add some information.
I think I would say not because he's not interested in being tested at a natural competition. Like he wants to live the longest. And some of these substances that are banned, they're banned because they're going to either help you like perform better, have better respiratory function, better, let's say heart function, for example, like testosterone replacement therapy for somebody who has low testosterone, having very, very low levels of testosterone for a man is actually more dangerous than, let's say, taking a very small amount of testosterone and being closer to, let's say, 7, 8, 900. So like that's a prime example of that's a banned substance, but it's actually helping with your health. So his whole thing is, how can I live the longest? So he doesn't care if he's taking something that's on a banned substance list because his goal is not to compete in the Olympics. So that for that reason, I think that he's definitely taking something, let's say HGH or something that would be banned on another, would make you consider not natural.
And you can see how educated he is. And he's actually 100% right because he's actually on test. He's injecting testosterone. And so he's not hiding it. And for the exact reasons he said, if he didn't take any testosterone, his testosterone levels would be crashed because he's not eating enough. And so by having that body weight so low, it's helping him live longer in that sense, but it's taking away from his cardiovascular health. You can't have testosterone levels bottomed out for the rest of your life. It's not good for you. And so he's actually on testosterone, which is medication. Some people think testosterone is just like a steroid. They call it like that. Think of testosterone as a medication. Now, if you're at doses like myself, prescribed by an endocrinologist, an expert in hormones, that's so that I can live a longer life. He said, I don't want to prescribe you this because I know what you did in the past, but I have to because I have a moral obligation, or ethically, I have to help you. You need this. If you don't take this, your health is going to be diminished. Just like any medication. If you're diabetic and you need insulin, then you need it. There's other things that are banned. For example, I can't just take diuretics and do a sporting competition, but what if I have high blood pressure and the doctor prescribes me a diuretic? It's to help you live longer. And so just because something is banned doesn't necessarily mean it's not healthy. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Eric Janicki, you can find him on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Please go and give him a follow. Check him out. Add in the comments. Very intelligent guy. You can learn a ton from this guy. And look at his physique. 270 pounds of muscle. Crazy. And so don't forget to go and spend all your money to make me richer than last time. Buy everything I want. New vehicles I want to buy. And so until next time, we are out.